I'm on a journey when it comes to 80s and 90s movies because they are two decades that I am really not that familiar with when it comes to horror movies. I would say on my journey I am still in like the Fellowship of the Ring kind of era, you know, I'm on the road, I've made an effort, I've gathered the 9 companions together and we're at that point in the journey. Like, I'm not quite at the 2 towers yet, we're still getting there. But also being from the UK means that I have never really seen anything with Elvira in it. I know in America that she is this like massive horror host slash icon, but the only experience that I have of Elvira is when she popped up in the Girls Next Door TV show and when she was a guest judge on Dragula. But I know that she is incredibly popular because anybody who has had a career that has spanned for decades is clearly doing something right. So today, I am finally getting round to watching something starring Elvira, and I thought, why not start with the original movie from 1988? But if you don't know anything about Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988, let me quickly fill you in. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988 is a horror comedy. When a chauvinist millionaire buys the TV network where Elvira is working as a TV host, she quits her job with the intentions of producing her own show in Las Vegas. However, the producers demand $50,000 for her and Elvira does not have the money. Out of the blue, she receives a telegram informing her that she has inheritance to receive. Upon arriving in a small town where she has inherited a rundown mansion, the former horror hostess battles an evil uncle and townsfolk who want her burned at the stake. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, but as always when it comes to watching movies that I have never seen before, I am now going to go and watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark off camera. So that way, if you too haven't seen this movie and you still want to, nothing will be spoiled for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie that you've just watched somebody else watch from start to finish, because then you're going to know exactly what happens, and I keep it spoiler free here on my channel.
It's called Goth, Eternally Clueless One.
Okay, she won't mind me saying, but I have a goth girlfriend and I love her to pieces. I don't care whether she is in full makeup or lounging around in sweatpants. It makes no difference to me either way. But after watching this and realising what the 80s and 90s were like, can I absolutely see why so many horror fans want goth girlfriends, because they're now fans of Elvira. Absolutely. I mean, my type is Tiffany Valentine, so I absolutely get it.
Is the little baby ticklish? Is he?
Elvira is very likeable, like very likeable, and I am always going to be a fan of women who are fiery, with big personalities, with big attitude, who are not afraid to be their sexy, authentic selves because that's who they want to be, and know what they will and will not tolerate. And that is Elvira, and I am 100% here for that. I am always going to be here for anybody that falls into this category. And then you put her in a town where she has 2 female counterparts. The first one being Chastity Pariah, which is a drag queen name if I ever heard one, who is this like Christian woman who doesn't like anything that is remotely different to anything that she wants to be normal. And then you've got Patty, who is technically like another version of Elvira. We're talking like big boobs up front and center, but is a fluffy sweater wearing pastel version.
Pastels?
Then you add in weird creepy as hell uncle and a house that would not look out of place living next door to the Addams family, that clearly has belonged to a witch before, because it's established earlier on that her aunt is called Morgana, and if you know, you know. And I was sold. And then you gave me baby Elvira, and I about lost my damn mind, because Spirit Halloween needs to get on this and add baby Elvira into their Terror Tots range, because I'd buy it in a heartbeat. And Gonk is the most adorable pet companion, like love a shape-shifting familiar. The plot is very like classic underdog kind of story as its base. You've got an outsider that comes to an old school town that is very set in its conservative, old-fashioned ways, And the elders are very set in this, and the youth, when they see this outsider, are like, we welcome this change because in this town, if you're born here, you die here, and we want to shake things up a bit. We don't want to end up stuck in this like endless cycle. And then you add in witchcraft and magic into this on top of this base level, and it's actually a really enjoyable plot. Now, because the base plot is so familiar, it is very easy to follow along with. Like, even though I knew basically nothing about Elvira besides the very basics, like I knew she's a horror host, I knew she's really popular, I know that the boob tape and boob glue that she uses are doing so much work, like that is the hardest working thing in this entire movie. I knew that, and then she is really likable as well. It means that I think anybody could technically watch this movie without really knowing who Elvira is to begin with. I would even go as far as to say, because I didn't really know that much about Elvira, I didn't have this like expectation going in, which allowed me to enjoy the movie just for what it gave me, and it's a really good introduction to who Elvira actually is. And because of that, I am absolutely going to go away and look into more of her filmography in the future, because I think I'm sold.
Okay, well, sold me.
The humour is very campy, it is very tongue-in-cheek, which is absolutely what I was expecting. But in 2 words to tell you what I was not expecting, but I am 100% here for, is horny casserole. And that came out of nowhere, and that scene is hilarious. And then Elvira does her own version of Flashdance, which again, I was not expecting. And this then ties into the practical effects in this. They are also very campy, very cheesy. The example that I can give is the casserole puppets, because that was great. But the CGI, that's maybe not aged quite as well as the rest of the movie, but considering this is an 80s movie, it is still really good by 80s standards, and I would even say by 90s standards as well, because oh boy, did the 90s have some questionable CGI. I need to take a second though to talk about the soundtrack, because that soundtrack is solid, and if you like late 80s music, it is like a perfect little time capsule, so go and listen to the soundtrack even if you don't want to watch the movie.
Scooby-Doo, take note.
I think that Elvira, Mistress of the Dark is a really good introduction movie to somebody that's actually looking to get into horror, because there's no gore, the violence is kept to a minimum, and it's spooky rather than scary in its like feel and in its aesthetic. Like, one of my favourite movies of all time is the 1991 version of the Addams Family movie, and this is possibly one of the biggest compliments that I can give a movie. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark feels very much like that version of the Addams Family, but with a sense of humour that leans very much on the adult side. So if you like the sort of spooky gothic vibes, then you will like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. In the end, I am actually going to give Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988 a 4 out of 5 stars, because I like a horror comedy that is just pure fun, and that is the definition of this movie. It has aged well, it is well acted, and I honestly think that it is just a pure good time. And while I don't think that it is the perfect horror comedy, I would absolutely watch this movie again, because it's pretty solid. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comments section down below. Is this one you're going to skip, or is this one that you would actually be interested in watching? If so, I will leave a link to justwatch.com like I always do in my description bar, so you can find out where it is streaming in your country. If you would like to know where else you can find me though, you can find me over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, or maybe even stick around and join the Horde here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button. But I will be back on Friday with another solo movie review, and this time it's been a while since I watched something to do with cannibals, and if you're not new here, you'll know I'm quite the fan of a cannibal movie, so it's time for cannibals in a desert. So until next time, bye.